You are listening to the Savage FINcast, episode 35, Talkin 200 with Erik Larsen.
Chicago. A criminal mastermind called Overlord held our city in his terrifying grip. Ordinary cops were losing the battle against Overlord's super freaks and mutants. Then, a miracle happened. When I found him, he had no memory of his past. I helped him find an identity and a life. Now we have a fighting chance. Now we have the dragon.
This is the Savage FINcast, the show that goes over and above. I am Jim Purcell.
I'm Craig Olson.
I'm Raven Perez.
We are back again for a giant-sized episode with a giant-sized personality. The one, the only Erik Larsen will be with us to discuss the great, milestone issue. Savage Dragon 200 is upon us.
Yes, this is going to be great. I can't wait to talk to him. I mean, I think that issue took me about an hour to get through, 100 pages, and it's chock full of good stuff. So I can't wait to get down to it and really talk about it and understand the process.
Yeah, we've got a huge interview ahead of us, so we are going to keep this slim and trim. Real quick, we're not going to do trivia this episode, but the previous trivia, it will still be send in your answers. Craig, if you want to remind everyone what that question was.
You're going to put me on the spot. All right, so we're not going to award the winner for last month's trivia question because we're not going to do a trivia question this month. We're going to time the 2 months, so you still have time to send it in. Just to recap, last month's trivia question was, name the deceased Vicious Circle member who briefly starred in a TV show based on Dragon's exploits as a cop. So if you know that, send your responses to savagefincast@gmail.com. And one winner will be chosen of all the correct entries to win a G-Man Learning to Fly trade paperback, including that includes the Savage Dragon Gmail crossover. And I actually got Chris G to sign it and sketch a little G-Man on the inside cover. He was at my local comic shop a month or so ago, and he did that for me. So that will be your prize to win if you can answer our trivia question. Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Do.
All right, so let's talk 200. First of all, congrats, Erik, on a super huge, cool accomplishment of reaching 200 consecutive issues.
Golf clap.
Yeah, that was something, huh? Took a little longer than I thought it would, but well, we got there. It's weird to be in the 200s now because it's like there's no turning back. You know, you just round that corner and suddenly it's like that's the way it is from here on out. Yikes.
That's pretty. I mean, in terms of like the comic book world, it's a huge thing. When like your family, like dealing with your family, do they take you out to dinner or something like that? Congratulate you for hitting 200, or is that just like another day?
Oh, it's another day. It's not an ordeal around here. No, Dad doing comics is like, oh yeah, who gives a shit? Okay, moving on.
It's kind of weird though when you think about it. I mean, you know, everyone's giving you kudos and it's a super huge kind of thing, and then you know,
high fives all around.
And then at home, it's like, oh, that's what Dad does. He's in his room again. Look at him.
It's funny because I eat a steak dinner every time I complete like 5 pages. So I was to be like, man, he's got like a license to go out and kill one human. You did it, man. You get off.
Yeah. All right.
But seriously though, I mean, when you finish this big issue 200, I mean, I'm sure you're super jazzed about it. Like, what are your outlets on that? You just kind of go online, talk to people, you know,
yeah, a little bit.
Phone call to someone.
Well, there's a whole process that goes along with doing every issue, in which you get it done, and then you send it out to, like, I've got a list of like 15 people that I send it to proofread. And so a lot of that is the end part of the process is just getting people to go, you used the wrong there, whatever, just finding various typos. And no one person ever finds all of them. And it's like, oh man, this is... So if you guys aren't all finding the same ones, then I must be screwing up too. There must be ones that are getting into print.
Right.
Generally, I think it's been pretty good. It's worked out pretty well. So, but that's the last stage of it is you go through that, and that's usually a day. And then there's kind of this period where you're sitting there flipping through the JPEGs forever, going, okay, they got everything. Is it done? Okay, all right. And then other stuff crops up. They're like, oh, we need a cover for this immediately. And it's like, okay, I guess the vacation's over.
Sucks all the fun out of your victory.
Well, it's an ongoing thing. So then the next issue is immediately there. It's like, oh, by the way, that issue 200 that you wanted to have out in November is going to be out in December, which means, everything else is suddenly late.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's pretty awesome, though. I mean, it was only delayed by like a month, but you're talking about a 100-page issue, with a lot of different people.
I'm impressed it's out in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm happy it made it.
As our Christmas comes early, man, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, holy cow, perfect.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I'm all about that.
Well,
came out by my birthday, so I'm good.
Nice.
And it takes a lot to get through. I mean, there's so many stories in here and so much different stuff going on. I just wanted to take a minute to kind of go through everything because I think you've hit almost every genre besides like Western comics in this book. I mean, you got the main stories, kind of the edgy street level hero. You got the Flash Mercury strips, which kind of are like alternative comics feel to it. You got a World War II action story. You got the Angel and Glum, which is like a sci-fi story. Football Malcolm's kind of like a high school superhero thing. Yeah. The SOS, you got your Golden Age characters in there for that story. Glum versus Dragon kind of got that Silver Age Kirby-ish kind of feel to it. Lightning Bug versus Wild Hare's got a more of a modern feel with modern coloring. Daredevil, that strip comes off like a horror comic. Vanguard, it's another space adventure. Dragon Burt's kind of got the parody strip going on, and then Desperate Times has got your more like newspaper style comic strip. It's like you got everything in there. Like the only thing I can think of is maybe a Western comic style thing was missing.
And porn really, but we kind of got that covered.
God love that. When I was hoping for milestone events around 200,
you had no idea.
I couldn't have hoped for better.
Yeah, that was really after 199. It's like, well, I can't do bigger than that. I can't do triple page spread. I can't have everything folding out. So it's like, all right. Really, that was the thing I wanted to get in issue 200. It's like, okay, Malcolm now goes that next step. He becomes a man, kind of thing.
And does he ever?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he doesn't just graduate into manhood. He explodes into manhood's world.
It's a whole new book. Yeah, it's awesome.
I was as I read that, I was like, that's masterstroke genius level, because I remember there was we talked about, we were like, well, it's like what, middle of a trade, and the big like his son takes over the book was 193, and we were like, what can really 200 be?
Yeah, it's like issue 8. Let's celebrate issue 8. But he at that point he's 18. Because he makes that move sort of between panels as a lot of things end up being, and so it's like, okay, that actually kind of makes some sense that this would happen at some point. So why not?
Did you wrestle with the idea at all?
Page 10 was wrestling.
And recap, which one was page 10?
Page 10 was when Angel just kind of was taking off her shoes, going, "Okay, I guess we're doing this." That page. The thing is that because of the way that the issue is laid out, where suddenly they're page 11 they're fighting and they're going to rescue Dragon. So page 11 on, at least visually, wasn't really going to change, based on what happens on page 10. So page 10 could have easily been Angel just kind of moping around, just kind of going, "Can you guys get dressed or something? Let's go. We're trying to rescue a man here, and that pretty much could have been it, and that would have been fine. And then, in terms of them having their discussions over the fight, then it would be like, "Wow, so Malcolm, you really did this. That's pretty cool," or whatever. It's just you graduated from boy to man. Congrats, kid. But then it was like, shit, I could do this, and this would be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You think?
And it was something where I actually sent it to a couple people. I sent it to Gavin. I sent it to a friend of mine who I kind of bounce ideas off of, and both of them were like, "Yeah, do it." My friend was like, "You're a pervert. Go for it, man." It's like, all right, well, yeah.
Fantastic. That really did. If it was just him and Maxine, it'd have been like, "Oh, okay, good, happy ending." It was the menage a trois.
Yeah, no, it's a whole new world, man.
That's what gave it the je ne sais quoi.
And
I see you're.
Yeah, the hijinks continue.
I see you're a fan of Michael Gilbert's Mr. Monster too.
Yeah, actually about doing that, because it was like, oh, that's a funny idea. I thought, just as a brand name, that would work really well. And so I contacted him and said, "Hey, I want to do this," and showed him the panel of Maxine with a big grin on her face, holding it between her fingers, and he was like, "Yeah, go for it." It's like, "All right, you rock, man." I didn't know how well that would read in print. It's a little small in print to be. If you recognize the logo, you're like, "Oh, totally, I know what that is." If you don't recognize the logo, it's like, I'm not 100% sure what I'm looking at. I'm guessing.
Well, I struggled kind of looking at it a little, and then I was like, I could read it said Mr. Monster, and I'm like, is that like the same font that they used in the actual comic, or is that just a coincidence? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same exact font.
Yeah, fun times.
But there's a lot of cool like callbacks on that, like with the scene with Malcolm in the shower, and it kind of calls back to Dragon and Rapture in the shower.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you too. I had a butt-clenching fear moment as I read it. I just was afraid Maxine was going to answer the door and get blown away.
Oh, get shot in the head.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh God, don't let this happen."
Don't let her answer the door. Yeah, that was definitely like something where it was definitely alluding to Dragon and Debbie from a million years ago. Where there's a knock on the door and she goes and answers the door. So I was like, all right, let me have that kind of thing again, where it could go either way. If she answered the door and there was trouble there, look out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
was afraid.
Malcolm opens the door and he gets shot in the head.
It's like,
God's sword right between the eyes.
I have to mop this up again. God damn. So
Yeah.
they're actually living together is on the DL. So her parents don't know that she's living with Malcolm.
I thought she screamed it at them.
Well, she's like, I'm moving out. I'm leaving. She wasn't like, I'm moving. I don't think. Maybe
I can't remember.
If I did, then I just screwed that up. But the kids, but like when he's at school, then the kids are going, hey, come on, let's go have some fun. He's not saying to them, by the way, I'm living with my girlfriend and I'm going home to screw right now. So yeah, whatever plans you have aren't as exciting as that.
Right.
Be like, sorry, but I bone all night.
This is my life now, man. I mean,
I really
do it, and I'm pretty happy to be the guy doing it. So no complaints there.
I like the new dynamic though, because in the past, Dragon was always kind of like I don't know, you want to say aggressor, but the guy that was going after, getting laid and everything, and Maxine's kind of taking the role here, kind of almost like the dominant role, and Malcolm's just kind of following.
He's like, okay.
Yeah, it's neat.
He kind of instigated it, but she went along with it, Where it's like, I kind of figured we'd be, but it's sort of that thing where you're half joking, half serious. Like if she responds well to this is awesome. If she doesn't, well, there's room to back off. And instead of going, well, this is awkward, it was okay. That's what I was thinking. It's like, whoa, hey, life is good.
And it thrusts a lot of character development into this.
There's a lot of thrusting.
Yeah, no pun intended. But it makes Maxine a more interesting character, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, I love the shit out of Maxine, to be honest. She's just the most fun character to write.
Maxine is the best. Best dragon girl yet.
Really, of all dragon girlfriends, that it would be Maxine 22 years into the book. It's like, wow, okay, cool.
Right.
I tried to make Jennifer into something, and she never clicked ever at any level. And Maxine just kind of hit the ground running, and it's like, wow, she's completely awesome right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Totally agreed.
I don't know. I'm slightly worried about their relationship now. Seems like a hard balance.
Yeah.
Especially as time goes on.
Oh, I know. No, but it opens up a lot of potential there, which is what I like.
I'm slightly. I'm also curious. I might be getting ahead of myself, but the Daredevil backup was that written like way ahead, or
which one?
The one,
the Nikos one.
The Nikos one with
where she
Angel and
hooks up with Daredevil.
Yeah, basically their relationship moves forward. It just seemed like a kind of a weird. What's what I'm looking for?
Everything is written. All the backups were written several months ahead. So it's all there, and really the lead story. I didn't know where the hell I was going with that until I drew it. So
right.
There's some stuff in there. I tried to hit it a little bit with some dialogue going, well, where's this going? It's like, well, I don't know. But we'll take it from there, and it goes somewhere or doesn't. So there's still stuff to say and stuff to do there.
Right.
In fact, in the next issue, I do kind of pick up from where Nikos left things. So the idea being that story takes place sometime after the lead story.
Okay, so it does take place after.
Yeah, it's not a flashback. Just as Dragon and Glum's story clearly takes place
after right
the events of the lead story.
Okay,
some of those things are flashbacks. Malcolm in football, playing football, probably took place when he was a junior in high school,
right?
Not a senior. So there's a little bit of back and forth on that.
May I ask a question then? Is if the backups, I'm always weird in my mind where backups fit in terms of continuity. Then would you say that the Flash Mercury stuff was just like gags, like because it didn't seem to acknowledge the whole Powerhouse and Flash as monster fighters thing?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how canon any of that is, because it's like it's not like they're establishing anything really.
Right.
It's like, okay, now we know that he's met Ricochet, I guess. So that part's there.
I thought that was a funny character to just turn up in that story. It just seemed like really random, but it also really works.
Joe Keating loves Flash Mercury.
Yeah.
And for good reason. Flash Mercury is he's Speed Racer as a superhero.
No, I meant Ricochet.
Oh, Ricochet.
Turning up in that story. I thought that just of all the random dragon characters, she's like the more interesting to like interact with Flash Mercury.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way that that all comes together. There's so much different stuff going on in the book, which I quite like. Frank's the Vanguard story initially was supposed to run, I think, 18 pages.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he told us.
He mentioned last time it was supposed to be the final 3 parts to conclude it.
Yeah.
He
just ran out of time on it, so we put essentially a cliffhanger on it, which is why the Daredevil story from Silver Streak showed up here.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was the wild hair story was put in because there was no mention of that in the solicitation.
No, there wasn't any mention of the Daredevil thing either. It was just, I mean, some of it you tell people ahead of time, and some you don't, and I wasn't sure how many pages the lead story was going to take, if I could fit it in,
right,
20 or whatever. I mean, I really at a certain point I could have just had there be more fight. There could have been a bigger brawl at the end and really be like, well, let's show Dragon in action and show people what he's capable of now.
Right.
But I kind of like the idea of leaving that a little vague.
Right.
And just kind of go, all right, we understand he's a badass, and we don't really even get to see how he's a badass, but he's just, I like that they come into the room where he was being held, and it's like, what the hell happened here? He's not even here. Where is he?
He mentions that he's kind of like what would you say, Captain America?
Yeah.
And does that point to like his race, the Krylians being, or Krylians, or however you say it, being kind of stronger than humans in general, or how does that work?
I think of Captain America as peak human being. So I think of Dragon at this point as peak human being. He can't lift a car, but that's, it's sort of like your Batman or Captain America or somebody like that, where you just go, this is about as strong and as athletic and as a human being is capable of getting.
Gotcha.
And he's got tons of experience and training and
I mean, there's a lot of the stuff. When he had powers, he would be like, whatever, you're shooting at me, I can take a hit. When you don't have powers, like, this is going to put a hole in me, so I better get the hell out of the way.
Right.
Right.
And so there's a lot of him finding that I have to do things a different way because of the predicament I'm in now. And so there's a lot of that. And in that double page spread at the end, you can kind of see how he manages to be victorious in this, as these guys are punching each other, and he's like taking out 4 guys in that spread.
Yeah, just collide, like knocking their heads together and jumping out of the way.
Yeah.
I liked it from the standpoint of like, this is Malcolm's book. So it was awesome to get to see Old Man Dragon kicking ass. At the same time, it was cool that Malcolm did still sort of stay the focus, because I know probably a lot of people were wanting Dragon to slide into a bigger, like more the spotlight, but I liked it.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, at this point is Malcolm's book, and I know there are people who are like, oh, well, if Dragon comes back, then I'll be way more into it. And it's like, yeah, I wouldn't be more into it at this point.
Right.
I kind of feel like that story's been told, and there's a cap on that, and it just feels like it's done. When I use Dragon now, he feels old.
Yeah.
You know? He doesn't feel like he's a fresh, young, vibrant character anymore. And there's something about that just is like, oh, okay. It feels like we've got no place with that.
Well, I think you did a really good job making this an issue that's pretty well rounded and getting new readers kind of up to speed, kind of satisfying old readers, maybe even kind of cluing in people that might have dropped the book and want to try it again at 200 just by, adding Dragon in. You do a lot to kind of, get everyone on board about the relationship between the characters. There's like subtle nods of, who, trying to explain who people are. It works really well. Even like with Flash Mercury, just having those little strips that kind of recount his background.
And
a lot of that is just, when I'm sitting there writing the lead story, I'm sitting there going, well, I know in one of the backups, Malcolm is touching people with his electrical powers. I better have mentioned in the lead story that he used to have electrical powers and that he doesn't have them anymore. Otherwise, It's going to be completely out of the blue that he's zapping people for no reason.
You do a good job kind of having the good angel kind of talk about evil angel in the main story being like, oh, she's not really evil, she's under control glum, because I got to think when you're putting these stories together, if you don't kind of mention that, you're going to confuse new readers when you have another story and she's out in Dimension X.
Yeah. There's a fair amount of like, okay, I got to be concerned about this, and this, and this, and I want to establish these characters, and I want to go here with this, and it was kind of an interesting challenge to be able to make it all work, but it was fun.
It's cool to see a couple of familiar old school VC guys too. I mean, we got Roughneck and who's the big Braun? Yeah, it seems like those two are some of your favorite guys. A, because you haven't killed them off yet, but and then we see some of the guys that came around like mid 100s that. Pucker guy who's really kind of a cool visual, and Iron Jaw, and it's kind of cool to see those guys kind of appear. It seems like you're getting more away from VC guys with like crazy supervillain costumes and more towards like Vicious Circle guys that are just like mutants, kind of like Morlocks versus like Magneto guys. You know what I mean? Is that on purpose or?
A little bit. It'll come and go.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the characters too. Like, I mean, really Cutthroat back in the day, it's like, is that a costume or is that just what he dresses up and wears every day? Because those are kind of pants and kind of boots, and I mean, he just could be like a guy who's in leather clothes. He's not necessarily, I'm putting on my costume now, kind of thing.
Right.
Here we go. And so there's a certain amount of that. I'm also fighting this thing of just readers going, oh, wait a minute, that guy important? He's got a cool costume. And
yeah.
Be like 10 guys would rob a bank. Readers would go, oh, who's this guy? What's his story? What's his, whereas in Spider-Man, you wouldn't be going, there's a guy in a brown suit. What's his deal?
Yeah, and it seems like
it's not important with the brown guy, how the brown guy in the brown suit got to be a guy in a brown suit. Where'd he get that hat? I'm really curious about that hat.
Yeah, you don't really care about all of Joker's minions.
It's not important. But when you start putting everybody in distinctive costumes, then suddenly they visually become that. They become like, oh, I want to find out about this guy, rather than he's just a dude. It doesn't matter. He's just a minion. He doesn't have a story. Let's have guys who actually count as something that matter, have those guys have the costumes. So when they show up, you can go, oh, geez, this guy with bolts in his head and a big red stripe down his middle, what's he all about?
Well, we'll go into that. I actually had a question about that. I mean, we've never talked as many times as Roughneck has appeared. Where did you get the inspiration?
He was actually inspired by Dave Johnson, because Dave at one point was putting like bolts and stuff in like Super Patriot or whatever. He seemed to be like, I'm putting bolts everywhere. And so I was like, I want to do the ultimate Dave Johnson character. I'm just going to have a guy with bolts straight out in his head.
With an American
bolts
flag
and American
pants.
flags.
Rex Kwon pants.
So that was what that was all about. Was my nod to Dave. I don't know that he ever knew that. He actually drew him in some Wildcat stuff later on, and was like, "I love this guy. He's really cool."
I've always wondered why the American flag pants.
He loves America, man.
Does he love America, or is he just being ironic?
Yeah, but that's kind of it's never really stated outright, is it?
Because those colors don't run.
Yeah, they don't. Which is when you're doing your own wash, that's important.
What about Pucker?
Pucker is just another like whatever. I need somebody to fill in this space. He has to take up this much room. What can we do here?
I really do love those guys that make great visuals like that. You have a knack of being able to do that, and that's sometimes you'll do those scenes in this book. When you have the scrub VC goons come in towards the end, they're just a bunch of kind of mutants in street clothes, and that's neat.
Punisher for some reason.
Yeah, but I do enjoy like quote unquote the kind of villain costumes when you put it together, or the features like that. Iron Jaw with his mouth and stuff like that, and it's cool to see those guys come back.
That spread at the end, I could make. There's probably 3 or 4 of those guys. You can just pull them out and go, why don't you do something with him?
Yeah, true.
And, it's like if suddenly this red guy with crazy ass teeth is showing up more, suddenly he becomes somebody, and you go, well, what was his first appearance? His first appearance is getting clobbered on a double page spread.
Yeah,
we don't know his story. We won't find out until it's told.
I think a lot of those characters that are built around a niche or a gimmick or something, kind of like Dung or whatever, they really resonate with people, and like I think they help the book. It's not even a question, so like we asked for reader questions, and like somebody like threw something out. His only thing was that he remembered Dung, even though he hadn't read the book in a long time. And I was like, I'll let him know.
Well, some of your best characters or most prominent characters in the book have been started off as kind of like parody jokes, like Johnny Redbeard or She Dragon, guys like that, which you would, when you first read it, probably would have never thought that they would be mainstays in the book, and they turned into huge characters.
Yeah, so it's true of a lot of it is just seeing what comes off of my pen, and then once something has come off, going, oh, can I make something of this? Is there something here? And sometimes there is, and sometimes there's not. And it's like when you're sitting there having kids talk to him in class, you draw somebody's haircut, and you're like, hey, I like that guy. I think I'm going to have that guy with that haircut show up again. And suddenly they're lifelong pals,
Yeah.
There's just you can do that, and it's cool to be able to do that. So it's just nice to be able to go, oh yeah, this guy Powerhouse showed up in a panel in issue 24, just in one panel. He was one of those tiny little head sketches, and I was sitting there later drawing an issue and talking to whoever. Who was I talking to? And then I was going, who the hell should I make show up in this? And he was like, oh, you got to use that chicken guy. Okay. I'll use the chicken guy. And he ended up being used a lot.
Yeah.
So wait, Powerhouse started out throwaway like that?
Well, Powerhouse was a character that I created when I was a little kid.
Okay,
Right?
that's what I thought.
He was around forever.
Okay,
when I
that's
was
what I
a little
thought.
kid. And so in issue 24, where I was showing lots of tiny little panels of different stuff, I wasn't intending. I always thought Powerhouse was a little goofy to be, starring or doing anything important. But I kind of wanted to go, okay, well, he exists, so I'm going to sneak him in here in one of these tiny little panels.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just ended up. Jeff Matsuda is the guy.
Yeah.
I was talking to Jeff, and Jeff was like, "Oh, you got to use the chicken guy." And so it's all due to Jeff.
What a gift he has given us.
Yeah, he's awesome, my guy.
I tell you, what was kind of visually striking, and I don't know if I guess it was intended to be, but they're kind of like background characters in a way in this issue, but it makes me want to learn more about them. Those 3 correctional officers that I kind of screaming at Dart. You got that one guy that kind of looks like the Avenger from Justice Incorporated, the really pale guy. He's like, what's his deal? Or the scarred up, the guy scarred up. It's like there's something to these guys. I'm hoping at
I'm
least.
going to take a wild guess.
These guys aren't just. That's not going to be their only appearance.
Oh, it isn't? I assume they were all dead.
You don't know. You don't know how she escaped. We don't know how that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So all we know for sure is that she's out of there. We don't know who she went through on her way out the door.
Right.
Are those people that if she bumped into them again, she would slice and dice? You bet. But did she get that opportunity on her way out?
I guess I just assumed at the last time we see her, that the very next panel would have been her escaping. That's just me.
Well, except that the bad guys didn't know she had escaped.
Oh, that's true.
Still holding Dragon.
Yeah.
Sometime later, So when we get to the end, I'm assuming when they show up and say, "Oh, by the way, she's escaped," they've got the latest news.
Right.
That's
okay.
Right up to the last minute.
I'm hoping that those correctional officers are either got superpowers themselves and they're superpowered correctional officers, or they're working for the VC and they're actually guys that we know without their masks on or something. But they look like a rowdy bunch.
It's a fun game. So
Yeah, when I saw them, they kind of, like Craig said, they didn't look throwaway. So I was like, are these supposed to be dudes I know? Or I forgot, like maybe I need to go flip back a few issues, see what's up.
No, this is their first appearance. No, they'll be back.
Cool.
This just as guys that are part of that. I mean, there's I haven't really done a lot of let's establish who's at Stronghold Penitentiary and have there be regular guys that are there. But now that I've got 3 of them at least, there can be guys you go, oh, that guy's appearing again. I know who that is. I've seen him before. He's that pale, pasty-faced pink eye.
It's kind of jumping around, but I mean, hell, it's what we're doing. I just wanted to ask about the technique you're using. I like the photo backgrounds for like the way that opens 200. It looks like cross-hatching going on. I mean, but also it kind of looks like a copy or something. Like, what kind of technique is that?
Is that just a Photoshop filter?
No, it's not a Photoshop filter. It's what happened is I made a sheet of cross-hatching. Just using little pieces of cross-hatching from something else. And so it's like I just built a sheet of it. And so then I had this big sheet, and I wanted when I took the photo, I moved it so I moved the contrast thing so that it was either black or white. And at that point, and I was like, okay, it's too black. It just sitting against Malcolm, it didn't really seem like it was in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the cross-hatching thing and laid it over it as a I don't even have Photoshop open, so I don't remember what the hell I call that. But there's like when you're doing things in layers, you can multiply or you can do things as a screen. I think it was a screen, so I put it as a screen, reversed it out, and it was like, okay, that works. and then to have it fade into the background, that's a gradient thing. And then when I turned it and flattened it all out, it did that wonderful thing. So it worked out.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I mean, just like I said, kind of like it's funny because it really like tricks your eye, like with the cross hatching. But then, I mean, obviously, it's like photorealistic too. So yeah, I don't know, good technique on that. I was like, I like this.
Well, it's something too where I think on the screen, it's a little different than when you see it in person. You know, in the printed book, it's like, okay, that looks kind of like it's drawn. Whereas on the screen, when you're looking at it tiny, it's like, he put a photo in the background. Wait till you see this full size. I think a lot of things just get, you lose something and you gain something just by seeing stuff in print or seeing what happens with it just in different ways. Because you don't really know what you're getting when you're sitting there looking at pixels, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's like... It's like those. I know it's a weird example, but like Leyendecker, you go, he's swiping these panels. I can't believe you would swipe these panels. What a thief! And if you ever see a Leyendecker thing in person, they're huge. They're so big that a lot of the technique and what makes them fascinating to look at is the dot patterns and the shapes and that it's so big and it's out of context and it's kind of a crude replica of what was in a comic.
Right.
He transforms it into something else. And then when we see it online, it's turned back into a comic panel and you can look at it next to the comic panel and go, oh, it's the same thing. And it's like, it's not the same thing, really. You're just seeing it. It's the same thing. It's been turned back into the same thing. You know, you don't, when you're sitting there looking at double page spreads on Facebook, you don't get that the actual size of these things is, you know, it's like looking at the side of a barn. They're huge.
Yeah.
You can't possibly get that sense from looking at it on a screen, and sometimes even in a comic. You don't really get that, just how big the originals are for these things.
Yeah, I'm amazed when I see your posts on Facebook when you're holding up the original pages and it's like the size of a car door, and you're like, my God.
It's pretty cool.
So this, I assume, continues the trend of the twice up.
Yeah, no, that's the new normal at this point.
All right. Okay.
I went and I bought a shit ton of that paper. So I've got like 14 pads of it, and each one is an issue. So I'm good for a year at least on that, which doesn't mean that every single thing in every issue is that way. Like the Herb Trimpe stuff, that when I sent him pencils, that was standard sized, and when he sent me stuff, it was standard size. I had no idea what size some of the other guys are working, since they sent it to me digitally.
So, as we're talking about Herb Trimpe, can we talk about his contribution, which is super cool and I think one of the highlights of the book?
Oh yeah,
I like. Herb was Herbert. He was one of those guys that I grew up with as a kid. He was doing the Hulk when I was a kid, and that was my everything at that point. And so the idea of having him be part of this was something that I had been thinking about for a while. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do this or that? It's a lot of it just kind of fell together in a weird kind of way, because at what point the Jack Kirby Museum was doing was flying people up to various conventions as a way of drop by our booth. We've got such and such a guy who's going to be, and so since they wanted guys who were influenced by Kirby or whatever, that sort of made some sense. They wanted me to do a print, but the problem was that they couldn't use any of the Marvel characters, and they had just licensed the the other characters to dynamite, so they weren't really sure what they could do with that or if they could do it, or whatever. And so I had suggested them, why don't I just do a dragon drawing that's in the style of Kirby, and I took a drawing that Jack had done of Captain America and Bucky fighting Nazis in World War II, and I took it and monkeyed with it in Photoshop so that I could make my own pencils that were the dragon and Malcolm. And so I printed those out blue line onto a board and inked it and then colored it, and that became the print. And so what happened later on was I had thought this would make a cool Savage Dragon cover. I should use this as a cover at some point.
Right.
And so talked to them about it, and they were totally cool with the idea of me using it. And then it became, well, I should do something that justifies the existence of this thing in the issue, so it's not completely just this random thing. And so that's when I wrote a story about Dragon and Malcolm going to World War II. And at that point, it was, well, I sure am not incapable of drawing such a story. And Herb Trimpe immediately was like, well, I know a guy who's super into this stuff. And he would know all this, could probably draw, Nazi tanks without having to look them up. And, he's really good at that sort of thing. And
yeah, he loves World War II airplanes and stuff. I remember buying an art book.
That tech. I mean, he flies an airplane himself. He has his own private plane that he flies around, and he's just into it.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you are the guy. Plus, he's a big Kirby fan, so that helps too.
Right. Yeah.
That I could send him that as my jump off point and say, this is what the cover to this thing is going to be. Take it. And he liked working from plots when he was doing stuff at Marvel back in the day. He really liked the process of having to be involved with the plotting of the story a little bit, and he was lamenting that everybody writes full scripts nowadays. I just did a story for such and such, and they gave it to me, and it was a full script, and it was like I'm taking dictation here. It's not. If you're used to doing the other thing, just following somebody else's stuff can be a lot like it's not as creative. You don't feel like you're really doing as much.
Right.
And so this was something where it was vague enough that I gave him room to play with it, and he had some fun with it. And I'm happy that he did, and he seemed to enjoy himself. So, yay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely came together really well. It's a really fun story.
Yeah, the kind of the bummer about that was that the original art was lost in the mail.
Really?
Yeah.
His pencils being sent to me, they never arrived.
Oh.
So I had to take the JPEGs that he had made,
Right.
print those out blue line, and then ink those.
Wow, that's a tragedy.
You know what?
I don't know where they exist. They've never been found.
I was gonna say they arrived somewhere.
Your neighbor 2 doors down has 8 really awesome pages of
Someone
her
opened up
Trimpe art.
It's too bad, but
It's unfortunate. They probably got wet or destroyed somehow.
I don't know. I don't even know. It wasn't particularly raining at the time. There was a day where it was. He sent them to the image office. He didn't send them to my house. I don't know why he sent them to the image office and not my house, but he apparently just looked up the address online. He was like, okay, off it goes.
Wow.
But
Thank God for computers.
yeah, thank God. Yeah. I mean, it's good that I've got a printer scanner kind of thing where I can print that up, and I mean, really, this is what the original art would have turned into anyway. So
Right.
it's kind of the way, and if the pencils are ever found, it's kind of a bonus. Like, oh, cool. There's also this.
So you think that happened a lot back in the day when you had like, Kirby or, when you lived in California in the New York offices, and you're sending mail back and forth without computers? Like, I wonder how many times that had happened where
I'm sure it's happened. where
Man, that's horrible.
That you go, there would always be that. There would be like, there's a few Gene Colan covers, I think, where they just got lost in the mail between the inker and the penciler, or the inker and Marvel, and they're like, we need this today, so we need to get a new cover done. And he'll do another cover, and then suddenly the original shows up in the mail. It's like, oh, now we got two of them.
That's so crazy.
But at least at least we can get this one in print. This one was here in time, so great, awesome, we're good to go.
Yeah, it's a super bummer for you though, not to at least have some of those originals.
Well, it's weird because he actually drew the pages slightly off when he sent the JPEGs over. He had drawn them to the same specifications as the next issue project pages, and they're slightly wider than ordinary comic book pages. And so when I got them from him and was trying to get them to be the right size, I was like, holy crap, there's a little bit of space on a lot of these panels, and I need to extend the art a little bit. And if I was inking over the pencils, that wouldn't be so easy. So it kind of worked out better this way, but at the same time, it's like, well, it still sucks. Because it wasn't supposed to be that bad.
I gotta tell you, my three words for my favorite thing in this story: Empyrean, Domination, Caduceus.
Yeah, what a great name.
Favorite weapon name ever. I mean, it showed up in, I did a little research. It was in 105, 136, and 137. I think initially Glum wanted it for a Death Ray, and then they were looking for it to reopen the portal to Dimension X, and is pretty
if
funny.
You'd like to know the origin of that name,
yes,
it is me looking in a thesaurus, coming up with different words that mean cosmic control rod.
Right. That's what I thought.
Well, I looked it up. Like, Empyrean means belonging to heaven, I believe. We all know what domination is, and I didn't. I learned that Caduceus was that staff, that physician symbol staff thing. I never knew that. So I learned something new.
that was what that was all about. Was just, I want to say cosmic control rod, which is what Annihilus.
Yeah, right. And that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. I was like, it's the same thing, but we're going to call it something different, It's like, what can we call the cosmic cube? I don't want to call it the cosmic cube. Whatever. Just do that.
And it's a neat story. It's cool to get that call back for long-time readers to be like, hey, I remember that weird name from somewhere. I remember something happened with this in the past. And for them to, they're using Dark Lord's kind of time machine, which I don't think we've ever seen actual in person.
Yeah, well, I think with Dark Lord, I kind of am in the impression that he'd have several different ones. Like, okay, this one's going to work. And then sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And so it's like, all right, well, I don't want this to become a thing. Like they can just travel in time all the time. So it's like, let's just have this happen once and then it breaks.
Right. But it was pretty neat because it kind of goes back to one of those hallmarks in comic storytelling of like the Nazis with super, devices, and cool things like that. So it kind of ties in pretty well. They need that device to open the portal. And of course, Nazis would have something like that. So I got a kick out of that.
I also want to say it's kind of like I hear people bitch and cry about not knowing things when they read. I've jumped around on Dragon a bunch, and I have far from an encyclopedic knowledge. So when I read it, I was just like, what a kick-ass name for something. And I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
So, just a thing.
You don't have to know. That's all I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. It's like
you don't have to know.
Something first shows up. I kind of was thinking about that with a lot of the villains. Like, once Malcolm fights them, if he's never met them before, they're a new villain as far as he's concerned. The fact that an older reader can go, oh, I've seen this guy in issue 63 and issue 68 and issue 124. Now he's showing up again. That's awesome.
Right.
That just becomes like an in joke for them in a way. It's like a little bit of an insight that, oh, I know this, but Malcolm doesn't even know it. When these guys show up, it's like, oh, that's a new guy as far as he's concerned.
Right. It's a nice little like kind of wink, a nod to your longtime readers while it not necessarily being important.
Yeah, it didn't hinder the enjoyment. I wasn't like, God, I just can't enjoy this. I don't know what that is. Whole story ruined right there at the end. Like, I didn't think that,
I'll tell you, I liked Bill Crabtree's colors on this too. I thought it kind of set the mood, kind of the grays and how did you guys go about picking colorists for the different backups, or did you let the artist kind of run with it, or is it a mix?
A lot of times it was, well, in some cases it was the artist. I know that Chris Burnham wanted Dylan on his, and so I was like, sure, let's have that happen. And I liked that there were generally Savage Dragon alum that were working on the
right
coloring the backups. So that part was kind of cool because he colored the one issue.
Yeah, the one issue that we were talking about, right? With the
yeah. I mean, it's
Brainy Ape.
It was a weird issue with weird coloring, and it was like, all right, that's cool. You want to use that guy? Sounds awesome. I can't wait to see it. I mean, I like it. I don't know how that would have gone over had I used him forever. I know as a one-off, I thought it was really cool. I thought, man, people might get tired of having it look so weird all the time, which is ultimately why I didn't use him forever.
Well, for the listeners, I forget which. I think it's issue 137, which we're talking about, which was the issue which featured the Empyrean domination, caduceus, or however you want to say it, pretty prominently. But I thought those colors were like kind of really good for that issue because I felt like that device was glowing and sending radiation, and it kind of made those colors fit with that story. Like it's radiating these weird colors off of it. So
well, they had the amazing joy buzzards in it. It was just kind of a weird one-off story to begin with. And it's like, all right, cool. This is just a crazy issue of this book.
We're talking about Dylan McCree?
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, the coloring in this, the Mr. Glum and Angel story, because it's so different, it kind of like gives a sensation of being in a different dimension.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. Co-signed. Totally feel that.
Well, and it's cool because you go from the Nazi story, which has got the real gray and subdued kind of colors, which kind of make you feel like you're in the past, and then it punches right into this next story, which is like a sci-fi different dimension where it's like neon colors almost.
Well, I didn't want it. Also, I mean, part of the thing with coloring things in the back was just talking with her, Trimpy. It was that we had been talking about how a lot of the modern colors really overwhelm line work, and he was lamenting, decent flat coloring and stuff like that. So when it came to choosing colorists on that, it's like, well, I know Bill does good flat colors, and he's going to do something that's going to be subdued and it's going to look cool, and it did. So
yeah, definitely.
And same thing with like I wanted old school kind of lettering on this stuff, and having Farron Delgado do his Artie Simek impersonation throughout all these 5 backups was pretty fun for me.
Yeah, it's neat. Even the sound effects are really cool.
Yeah. He's totally into that. He does when they would do translations of English comics to. I think he's from Spain or something. I'm not even sure where the hell he is. But these guys are all over the world, So it's like I don't even know. I'm just dealing. As long as they can write to me in English, we're good.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for those sound effects that are kind of like jagged at the end. That look like kind of pieces of wood.
He lettered the story that I did in the Giant Size Kung Fu Bible Stories. He lettered the Jack Champion thing. And I had him do an Artie Simek thing there. And so I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. He can do anything. But but I'm saying is he would do that for when there would be foreign translations of other comics. He was really good at finding a way to match what those particular fonts and styles and stuff. So he does a great Artie Simek. He'll do Sam Rosen when he needs to. He'll do various other people. So it's like we want this cover to look like it was lettered by somebody. It's like, okay, I will find a way and figure that out. And he's really good at that. So it was nice to be able to work with him. I'd like to work with him some more. The only thing with him is he's not lightning fast.
Yeah.
And I kind of need lightning fast when it comes to Savage Dragon.
Right.
The book is always like, okay, you got 3 hours, letter it. This is the freshest book in the racks, pretty much. It's kind of sad, but
yeah, really that Glum and Angel thing. The lettering is standout, the coloring standout. Burnham's kicking ass. Love that Mark II armor design.
Yeah, well,
good luck drawing that now.
yeah. I was gonna say, enjoy that nightmare.
The idea of it was that it was supposed to be like
incomplete.
Yeah, like 3PO before he gets his skin on.
Yeah.
So that was the thought, at least. So hopefully, when I just draw it regular, people won't be like, "Wait a minute, it was awesome."
That always happens to you, though. I mean, you get like Dave Johnson making Super Patriot more intricate, or Corey Walker turning Brainy Ape into crazy robot, and
yeah.
Here you go. Have fun now.
Step up.
I'll draw these 8 pages and make your life hell.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
How did Chris get involved with the project with the backup? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean some of it was people just kind of going, I want to be part of this celebration. Can I do this? And it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, he kicks ass. I love his Officer Down.
He's
shot.
He's a big Dragon fan, so it was a nice thing for him and me, and I'm certainly happy to have him. That was great. He did an awesome job. And then just some of the other guys, it happened that they wanted to do it, and I didn't really force much of anything on anybody except for Herb. He was like the only guy who I was like, I'm going to go out specifically hunting for this guy.
Right.
But the other ones, it was kind of they were there, or they were willing to, or they had a story that they wanted to tell, and it often it'll come from them. It's like, what story do you want to do?
So, but I noticed that all the stories are by you, I think, except for the one that Gavin did and the Vanguard one. So are they just kind of, this is the kind of idea I'm pitching you, and then you kind of put it together for them, or?
It depends on the particular one. Usually it would be, I'll go. I don't really relinquish my characters very much.
Yeah.
So when it came to this stuff, it was like, well, which characters do you want to draw?
Gotcha.
And then I'll write a story with those characters.
Cool.
And let's do it like that. Because I know Nikos wanted to do an SOS story. I didn't have a real specific story that I wanted to do with them.
Right.
But it's like I can tell the Daredevil Angel thing within the context of there being this SOS craziness going on. So you can still draw those guys, but here's the other part of that.
Cool. I really, really like the title for the Glum and Angel story that Burnham did. It's called Conquering Heroes, and you could almost take it two ways. Like, it's like them, either conquering heroes that are trying to save their planet, or it's them being the heroes conquering planets, which I thought was kind of neat, and I didn't know if that was on purpose or what, but
yeah, well, it's the bad guys conquering them, like they're conquering those heroes,
right? Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, that was totally on purpose.
Totally did that. Meant to.
Yeah, but that's me. Always. Sometimes.
And going on to the next backup, the end zone one with Travis Sengos. I mean, he's pretty much a newcomer. I don't really know him from any books out there. How did you meet him?
He did a backup in Savage Dragon a long time ago.
Do you remember which
Now
one?
you have to search your memory. I don't remember the issue number off. I don't remember the issue number off the top of my head.
What was the story?
Remember what it was about?
It was Dragon and Jennifer fighting a robot, and it was a short little backup, and it's kind of pretty funky art. And I did like a fake cover on the. Did I do a fake cover on the back, or I just colored it on the back? I don't remember. But it's in it. It's in an earlier issue. I think it's after 100. Yeah, I think it's after 100 and it's before. You know what? Screw it.
Yeah.
That's okay. Just
You've got the internet, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
be looking this stuff up while we're sitting there. You don't even have to sweat it. So,
I remember you saying something about someone approaching you to do a football story, and
yeah, he wanted to do football, and I love that when guys want to do Malcolm. You know.
Yeah.
Because it's like the go-to is so often just I want to do Savage Dragon. It's like he's the real guy, and when it's like I want to do a Malcolm thing, it's like fuck yeah, let's make that happen.
Yeah.
I like this story a lot, but I want to say I was slightly disappointed that at the end it turned out to be a vicious circle plot. I kind of wanted the other kid to just be another kid, and them just clashing just ruined it for everybody.
Well, he wasn't a vicious circle guy. He was. I hope to make a name for myself.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, it was a VC wannabe.
Right,
He's a
okay.
VC wannabe. It wasn't like the vicious circle put him in there and put him in place to do that. It was like him going, "This is going to be great." Travis's story showed up in Savage Dragon 122.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Can I just say, Critical Mass is, for the listeners in listener land, that's the VC wannabe. Amazingly awesome visual. I know he got blowed up, but you're going to use that guy? He going to show up?
Well, he's certainly capable of showing up again, because when he's talking about how he's going to blow everything up.
Right.
So my take on him is that he can blow up and reform. So
He kind of looks like Cardiac on steroids.
he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he is cool, especially
Whose
with
design? You or Travis?
It's totally Travis's. So if I use him, it's got to be it's got to be with his full cooperation. It's not like I don't own the character.
Oh, it's awesome.
I would co-own him. So I'd be like, oh, here's a guy we both own now. So is it okay? But I imagine he's probably fine. Whatever. You know, just let him know, hey, this is somebody you can use too.
Yeah, that whole football backup was fantastic too. It was all killer.
I loved it. I thought he did a really nice job with that. And he's got a good feel for the faces, and he's got a good feel for the way kids look. I love the shot of Malcolm shoving his fin over to the side so he can put his helmet on.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
It was kind of cool how they talk about it too. I mean, even for someone that's like a new reader or something like that, and just a little question you'd have, like, how does he deal with that? It's kind of cool.
This thing? But I think of the fin as sort of being like his ear. You know,
Yeah,
like you could
cartilage.
You could put a helmet over your head and fold your ear over, and you'd be like, this sucks. It doesn't feel good at all, but you can still do it.
Right.
Well, that sort of thing.
I really like the panel where he's throwing the football from the end zone to the other end zone.
Yeah.
He's just yelling that it's the other guy's job to catch it because he has super aim.
Yeah.
Also, towels thwacking into butts. Fantastic. Right in a crack. Good, fantastic, Travis. Hope you're listening.
You know,
So that was like, okay, they're going to be in the shower, but don't show anything. So, just place this sort of stuff in the way. It was like, all right, that worked.
It's fantastic.
it was very good, very dynamic. Just a lot of action, and it looked neat. You could just feel the characters kind of flying off the page. I really enjoyed it.
The little concern I had was on the last page that those first two panels read as two panels. But,
right, they are, yeah.
Because they do overlap, and it's
Yeah.
like, is this going to work? But it helps that he's got green skin and it's sitting there. Well, who else could this be? It's gotta be.
Right.
I totally read it. It read clear for me.
Yeah, me too. So let's talk about Nikos's contribution with Talkin. We glazed over it a little bit
Earlier.
I was super surprised.
Yeah. He's a great artist. He's got chops.
Oh yeah, man, this one's awesome. His style is fantastic.
He did a story in 150.
Yeah, he did with the
Vanguard. So
yeah,
he's done it before. He's kind of gone a little more goofy, cartoony,
right,
in this than he had been there. But it seemed to work. So whatever. It's cool. It's cool.
Well, in 150, he was the one that kind of designed the Tyranians, right?
Yeah.
It was all based off his design because he drew it in 150 as a backup, and
yeah, it's like, okay, I'm stuck with this. It's another guy just sticking me with something, right?
But this is cool to see the trolls again and to see the Golden Age characters. I mean, he's got a ton of them in there, and it kind of feels like it carries over from 199.
Yeah. Well,
but,
in terms of us actually doing the work, he was doing his before I was working on 199, so I knew what characters were going to be in here. I knew what was coming when I did 199. So mine was sort of me just going, I want to be first.
So I love the classic coloring style too. Somebody was like, "Oh, I missed this color." It's funny. I remember people bitched about the coloring style, and then on Facebook, somebody was like,
"I bitched about it."
Were you one of those people, Jim?
I'm not the biggest fan of the sun in my eyes.
Yeah.
I like
very
it.
bright.
I like it.
Yeah, he on his own, he likes to color hold damn near everything and push things back into the background and have there be. And eventually, I got to a point where I'm like, can we just not do that quite so much? This it was a little too crazy textury for me. But I look at this and I was like, this does look pretty good. It's pretty cool.
I think it works here with his own art style.
Yeah.
I think it adds to the quote unquote cartoony nature of it. I just didn't think it meshed well with your style.
See, I look at it too, and I see his style kind of almost like a mix of almost like a lot of Ryan Otley kind of style into it, with like the heads kind of getting bashed and the eyeballs flying out.
Yeah.
It really has
so
an Otley feel. Even the
That's
faces
so
a
good.
little bit to me. I thought it was kind of neat. Like, it's really cool. I enjoyed it.
All right. Yeah, no, he'd like to do more, so
and I thought it was cool. There's a couple of different callbacks, I think, to 196. They're probably using those same what do you call them, the demonite chains, because they can't break through those chains, and there's the kind of chains that Malcolm was all locked up in.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see Angel and Daredevil kind of their relationship moving forward.
Huh.
And it's cool for a new reader or someone who doesn't really know anything about these guys to be like, oh, they have something going on between these guys.
What's going on here? What the heck?
Wasn't she just in the apartment? But then.
What?
So
Nah,
we know the SOS is kind of known for high mortality rates. Do you have problems killing off these Golden Age characters, or you see them sticking around?
I don't see any problems killing them off. I'm the only guy using them, but they're in public domain and anybody can use them
Right.
in their stuff. So I kind of feel like I'm just killing off my versions of them if I kill them off at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So no loss.
Plus, everybody else sort of chilled out on it too. So I mean, remember when they first they were everywhere, and then they sort of just. Woof.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah,
I think Project Superpowers is still going.
Is it?
I think so.
Oh,
Eh.
I don't know about that.
No.
I know they tried for a while, and they gave a lot of those guys their own books, but it's tough when you can't use Daredevil's real name on the cover.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like, well, this can't help it suck at least a little bit.
Death-defying devil or something.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
You can't use Uncle Sam or Phantom Lady either.
No.
Now, DC's got them locked up.
Well, it depends on. You probably can use Uncle Sam, just because it's tough to own that.
Right.
Right.
Being that it means
Yeah.
it means what it does, so it's kind of tough to be able to go. This is mine. I'm locked down. A lot of those titles can be abandoned if they're not used.
Right. Well, Phantom Lady had a title 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's somebody that's like I can use her, and they haven't used her Golden Age costume.
No, it's new costume.
Forever.
New character, really.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of that's because the other one's in public domain. So it's like, well, we can't own this, so let's do a different version of it so that we can own something.
Right.
So, whatever, dudes.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
I primarily know these characters from when Alan Moore used them in Tom Strong.
Yeah.
He did his whole Terra Obscura thing with a whole world full of these Golden Age characters. So that's the first time I ever really learned about like Black Terror and them.
Yeah. Well, so they've been used off and on. I know Eclipse used them when they were doing. They did a bunch of 1940s stuff. They revised Airboy and they did a Black Terror thing that.
I want to say Dark Horse has an Airboy comic now.
Do they?
Maybe.
I know Eclipse did at one point. They were using him, but it's a weird character.
Yeah.
It's just there's just no two ways around it. You go, it's this kid who's fighting Nazis in World War II. That would never happen. Let's let this kid do it. He seems really energetic. And he hates the Nazis.
The beauty of comics.
Yeah, it's just all fine. What, a kid as a reporter? Sounds good. Let's just... Has he finished high school? Who knows? He is of undetermined age.
Here's a microphone. Run into this battlefield.
Go for it, kid. Yeah.
So, how jazzed were you to see Herb's inks over your pencils?
That was such a weird thing to get that. Because when I was inking his stuff, I kind of realized as I'm inking it, I'm changing this quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because his dragon was not exactly on model, and it changed a lot from page to page, really. At the end, he was giving him a big Dudley Do-Right kind of jaw, and then in the beginning, he wasn't. So I kind of like, well, I need to make him look somewhat a little more consistent than what Herb had drawn him. And then he did the same with me. It's like I sent him my stuff, and I came back and was like, wow, you embellished. You really changed this into you. And it's like, that's cool. What's weird is to look at me inking him and him inking me, and they don't look anything at all alike. And yet, in both cases, you can see the other guy completely.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a cool thing that I don't know that I've actually ever seen anybody do that before, now that I think about it.
You definitely have to post the originals on Facebook once the issue comes out so we can see how it looks. That would be pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, good idea.
I do have one,
Yeah, I can do that stuff. Huh?
I do have one comment about this story, and also the there was another story in here that mentions alternate angel.
Uh-huh.
It's weird to have Dragon refer to her as alternate angel because
Yeah.
isn't she legally his daughter
Um,
since he married her mother?
that's the one where it actually is his daughter by marriage,
Right.
whereas the other one is not his daughter by marriage. She was her. They never got married.
Right.
But what else are you gonna call her? You know, it's got to be something that differentiates her from the other one.
I don't know. I just think it just seems awkward to just call her, my daughter.
Yeah, but for the reader, they're not gonna. It will be too confusing.
The problem is, you're informing a reader at the same time.
You know, real funny anecdote, real quick, Jim. I had two friends named Chris.
Right.
So they became Chris and Other Chris. And eventually Other Chris just became Other. And one day Other comes to me and he says, you know what's weird? And I said, what's weird, dude? Because I coined that nickname. He goes, my mom called me Other today.
What?
So I think it's one of those situations where if everybody's running around calling her alternate angel, it could creep. It could creep into the vocabulary.
I don't know. They're in her world. She's supposed to be original angel.
Yeah. But, at this point, how many years has it been since that?
I get it. I understand. I just think it's weird.
It's now 5 years into that grand experiment, that she's been over here, and, eventually the other angel that's in another dimension just becomes the other angel that's in another dimension.
Yeah.
Hey, remember, I've got somebody over there who looks just like me, and here's her deal. Yeah, no, it is weird. I agree.
She's gonna be Other angel.
I love those 6-panel pages with you and Herb's art behind. It just looked neat as hell.
I like working on a 6-panel grid. I know it for a lot of people it looks and feels old school. It's kind of nice to not have to sweat the page layout.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what it's going to be every time. I can totally understand why at one point people just did that, because it just takes a lot of stuff off the table that you don't have to really think about and dwell on it so much.
But I really think it conveys like a lot of fast action. You're having a fist fight is going back and forth. And it just conveys a consistent time, and they're just going back and forth. It just really conveys what's going on. Well, it's kind of perfected.
Again, with the Kirby thing is I kind of think of that when I think of Mr. Glum, actually, of him being like the lost Kirby character.
Yeah.
Like he's like a Kirby monster, and he's off doing his stuff. So just because of that, a lot of times when I'll do, here's a scene taking place meanwhile with Mr. Glum, it'll be like it's a 6-panel grid when we're doing a Mr. Glum scene. And so with this, I wanted to do that, have there be that. Also, there's a very blatant swipe in this Jack Kirby swipe. And it's from a cover of Tales to Astonish, where the Hulk is fighting Giant Man, and I wanted to do that because it was the reverse, because Dragon's now big and green, and he's fighting Mr. Glum, who's now small and red instead of green. So just whatever reason that seemed to work for me, and so I was like, I gotta get this in here somehow.
So is it a whole page swipe, or
it's big? It's a big shot. It's towards it was initially a cover.
Oh.
But I don't number my pages. Damn it!
Is that big? Is that big?
It's page 6,
right?
It's page 6 of the story.
Yeah. I remember we were earlier talking how you decided not to show Dragon fighting the Vicious Circle Goons in the main story. Having a little fight scene here was actually a good replacement for that.
Totally agree, Jim.
I love the page. It's the 7th page, I think, the second to the last. It's the 4th panel with the clop sound effect. You can really see Herb's inks. Like, I can almost see a Hulk face in that dragon. Like, you look at that, and there's no mistaking that's a Herb Trimpe ink job. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of this fight. Oh, you're weak now. Let's fist fight.
Fine, I can kick your ass. Oh. It's like, no, you can't. Yeah.
It's such a weird thing too. Like Angel and Glum, they're like, that last panel, they're in bed together. It's like, are these two really hooking up? And I think that funny thing, even in the main story, how they talk about it, like, are they in dimension triple X or something? Like,
Look at an old married couple.
I figure they just must be going at it like crazy.
That's what I thought too, man.
It's just like, what else is going on over there?
Conquering worlds and each other.
Here we go.
His little Glum balls. Ugh.
It just got real. Yeah.
He wears underwear, so you gotta assume he's got junk.
Yeah, there's something. There's something going on there.
He tried to shame.
He's got that Fin Fang Foom underwear on.
Yeah. That stuff under there.
Malcolm's just saying what we're all thinking.
So, I got a question for you. Just to move on for the sake of time, we're getting into like an hour and a half, but the Bad Hair Day story by Gavin and
who is that? Scott James. Folks.
Scott James, yeah. Sorry, Scott. I see the layouts were done by Ron Friends. What's the story behind that? Was he supposed to do a story originally?
No, I think those guys totally did that on their own. It was as far as I was concerned, it was the happiest accident or whatever. But it was they just did it, and I just sat back and let that happen. Apparently, they know each other, and it came about that he wanted to lay out a story for him, and
that's awesome.
Okay, yeah, I see no reason why not to let this happen. Sure, do that.
I love Ron Friends. I think he would make an awesome backup, for Dragons. It would be so neat to see his style. Like, it would fit awesomely.
Yeah, he's good. He's really good. When I was doing the Defenders, he did a couple issues of the Defenders when I got deathly ill.
Right. Lost all feeling in your hands.
Yeah. It's still like that, by the way.
Yeah. I have a couple of things that came my way when we put out the call for Scott for questions. Scott James himself came in with some questions. So he says, and this I figure since we're talking about Scott and Gav's Bad Hair Day backup, might as well throw this in there real quick. What is this straight from Scott? I'm his puppet at this point. What is the likelihood of a beer belly backup in the pages of Savage Dragon?
Well, somebody would have to give a shit about beer belly. So that would have to happen. Really, that's not something I would do on my own. But
right.
if somebody was like, I really want to do this, and I got a cool story to tell, it's like, I'm not going to say no. So,
right,
it works sometimes.
And his follow-up was, if there was any prospects of a Gavin and Scott miniseries. Any thoughts on that? I was thinking if anything was like that. I know the market's risky, and these are
I think that would be hedging your bets, really.
What about like a digital only, like with Tech Jacket?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be we could always try it and see how it goes. And
I always thought those two would do really well on like a SOS ongoing or mini.
Yeah, well, it really depends on how the market receives stuff. If the market's like, yeah, we're totally down with this, then hey, awesome. If not, then it's like, oh, we just took a bunch of time and weren't able to make this work. Oh well, that kind of sucks.
That's an interesting point, though, for like stuff you're afraid that won't sell, like hard copies. What's the expenses in something that's already put together and
I don't
making
even-
it digital?
I don't think it's huge.
Hmm.
As I understand it, production costs are the same regardless if it's print or digital.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because they got to put it, like Comixology's got to put it into their like reader format or whatever.
Well,
or
no, there's a percentage thing off the top there, but I'm talking like actually paying artists and creators is the same.
No, but I'm saying for like backups, like say the Vanguard backup, if you wanted to make it a collection, like the stuff's already done.
We could do that. Yeah.
It'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just the work itself, yeah, somebody's got to do the work, and they either get paid or don't. And a lot of guys, a lot of the backups are just guys saying, "I want to be part of the book." So can I be in your comic? And it's they're just doing it for the love of doing it.
Well, and a lot of these newer guys are getting a lot of exposure that they wouldn't have had too. I gotta imagine.
Well, I would hope, if these guys can't get work after doing some of this, it's like, geez, then something's not working.
Yeah.
But at least it's nice to be able to show somebody, look, I can do work. I have done work. Here's work. It's in print. It looks professional next to everything else that's in this comic. Give me a chance, for crying out loud.
Right.
So, and guys, a lot of guys who have done backups in Dragon have gone on to doing other stuff. So it's worked out for a few people.
Maybe a little guy named Michel Fife. Just saying.
Yeah, well, there's him, but there's also.
Well, look at Kirkman and Walker on Super Patriot. I mean, that helped.
Who was that first guy?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. Some schmo.
Yeah,
but there's a lot.
I like the idea of potentially just, I don't know, dipping your toe in those digital, like with Tech Jacket. I have no idea if that did good for them or not.
Well, it led to an ongoing print series, so it must have done something.
It's a cool idea, though, to not take a risk with print, but just try it digitally. I understand the creative teams still have to be paid, but I guess, I don't know, it'd just be a good way to experiment.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to see some stuff like that.
It would be. It'd be fun.
It was talk about, just to go back to Gavin's story, it was kind of fun to see Lightning Bug and Wild Hair and even Amy as a cop.
Yeah.
We used to know as She-Dragon. I like when Gavin does a backup, he seems to try to involve some of your older characters, and I think it's probably on purpose.
He's very much in the, can we tie all this stuff up? Who can I...
Where's Wild Hair from? She
Is
she a Freak Force villain?
She is in Freak Force, yeah.
And she was like in the gang war stuff too, wasn't she?
Probably,
Wasn't
but
that outside?
I think she was Freak Force first, so...
Yeah.
Lightning Bud was one of the Knicks men, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she was one of the Knicks men. Yeah, and she in like the very first issue of the miniseries, there was those versions that had different covers or different pinups in them. There was one of the pinups, and she was on it. She was just a character that I made up on the spot to fill up a space.
That's when I remember that pinup was like Rock actually looked like a bunch of bricks or something.
Yeah.
Like, it was pretty cool. But she's always been a character that's been kind of a villain, but leaning towards being a hero. I remember, there was the issue where she was kind of shrunk to like small size with Dragon, and Dragon was actually like on her back, like flying around.
Yeah.
And he kind of like you could tell she wanted to do good, so it's kind of cool to see her back. And I think this is actually the first time we've seen her use her powers. I could be wrong. Like, I know we've seen her fly, but I don't think we've ever seen her like shoot anything out of her hands or anything. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I seem to recall her doing that.
Oh,
She
maybe.
seems marginally more effective than most of Johnny Redbeard's
Yeah. Most of his are pretty lame. They can't do a damn thing. They just take up room in a panel. That's what they're capable of.
I like that even Scott James went to the trouble to, even the cop behind Amy is a cop we've seen before.
Yeah, the dude with the mustache.
It's a nice little touch.
Yeah. Well,
That was a cool story.
there'll be more. I know I need to use Amy more as in the book and have her actually be a character.
Team her up with Frank Jr.
Well, Frank's going to be in the book more, and a lot of these guys are going to be in the book more. So as time goes on and things progress, because eventually we'll be at that point where Malcolm will be in the police force. So we'll get there. Spoilers. Sorry.
Cool. Well, you figure he's 18, so he's getting up there.
He's 18, so he's at that time where it's like, okay, this can happen. They've been asking if he's gonna, so it's like, all right, at least give this a shot for a little bit and see how it plays out with him.
Right.
So this Daredevil story, this ran back in
The next issue special.
right.
Yeah. This was in Silver Streak.
What, it was in Silver Streak? Because that was one of the first comics we talked about in the podcast.
Yeah, it was in Silver Streak 24 when we did that one. We did just as a one off. So yeah, that was from there, and again needed a place for it. So when Frank's didn't take up as much space, and I didn't take up as much space, then it was okay. Well, we need something to fill up some room here, and that was one of them. Another possibility would be to run. I had a 6-pager that was done and only seen print in Herculean.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I could do a story with him, but just have that story, pull it out and use that in here, but I didn't have to.
I think the Daredevil story is a cool story to put into. He's a cool character.
Well, it works. It works more just because he's part of the ensemble cast that's in the book already. To just suddenly go, well, here's some other random dude. It would be fine because it's still me and still my work and still something that I do, but it's not really a character from the book. So.
Right. And like I said, it was neat. Like I think when we were talking at the beginning of the podcast, and I listed all the stories, it's like you cover every genre, and this story almost feels like a horror comic with the colors and just the feel of it. And it's kind of neat that you've kind of included something like this and almost covered every base in terms of comic genres. But
yeah, it's like, it's got romance, it's got science fiction, it's got kind of cover everything except for westerns.
They
Next
I
time.
like too the use of making things look old style. I mean, it's funny that even that got worked in there. So that's a thing that you're really good at, and it's kind of funny to that even that found its way into your 200th issue somehow.
Yeah, I do like doing that, giving it that fake page texture.
It's good to show Daredevil kicking ass. I don't think at first glimpse you might like his costume, but anytime Guy with a Boomerang is seen by the public, I don't think people think awesome.
Everybody loves Captain Boomerang.
I like his.
No, I'm serious. He's going to be in a movie.
With this, I did have to monkey with the art somewhat because of again
the dimensions.
The dimensions.
Yeah.
So
He's Golden Age sized, right?
Yeah, his Golden Age size. So I had to extend the newsprint from what it had been. I had to make the newsprint go up farther than it had been before. So luckily it looks okay. I was a little concerned that in print it might look a little funky, but it seems fine.
And then the Vanguard strip, I know in the last FinCast we were talking to Frank about Vanguard, and he was in the process of working on the cover for 200 and getting it to you. And he was joking how, I got to get all these pages in because I got this cover in and it'll be a spoiler, because it shows whatever blowing up. And he's like, I got to get this done. So apparently he didn't
he wasn't able to finish the last few pages.
No, he didn't quite pull it off.
Now he's got to draw another cover.
Well, the next issue at least he doesn't, because I promised the back cover to Claiborne Moore in his Dart statue, so I need to put that. There's an ad that needs to run in there for that. So for one month only, he doesn't get a cover.
You're off the hook, Frank.
Yeah.
You're not gonna make it happen.
I tell you though, I love Gary and Frank's Vanguard series because it feels like its own, almost like a separate universe. They have like their own Vanguard universe of characters, which have been around for a while now, and it's kind of neat and familiar and interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it's got its own thing. You know, I was kind of sad that Vanguard wasn't able to make it on its own as a book.
Mm-hmm.
But here they are, you know.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that. I think it really suffered because there were so many different artists on that book when it came out like that. It made it rough.
Well,
to follow.
It was a mess. It really was because so many of the people that you know, the initial guy just kind of bailed. He wasn't able to do it, and then it's just after that, each successive guy had his own baggage that came along. Like, I can do an issue, but I can't do it as a regular thing.
Well, and we were talking about how many artists kind of started or got some of their earlier work through Dragon. Look how many of those artists on that first Vanguard series went on to big things too, though. You had quite a run of different artists there, and some of those guys were already, I guess, kind of big when they did it, weren't they?
Was Joe Mad?
Yeah, was sort of.
Or no,
he was well established when he did it. Joe Mad, though, hadn't done any X-Men stuff yet.
Right.
So I think that him coming over and doing something at Image, that became something where Marvel was suddenly like, whoa, wait a minute, we can get this guy back. And so I think that sort of led to him doing X-Men, which that wasn't a bad move for him.
Yeah.
That was my first Joe Mad exposure.
Yeah. Well, before that, I think he'd done a couple issues of, what was it, X Factor? I think he did 2 issues of X Factor that were kind of just, they were fine, but he was sort of finding his own at that point. He hadn't quite nailed down what his style was going to be and how he was going to be different from his influences.
Right. Well, I guess in the sake of time, we can talk a lot with, hopefully we'll get Frank or Gary back on to talk about the Vanguard stuff. But I wanted to talk about Savage Dragonbert because we hadn't seen that for how many issues.
Seen it since issue 100.
Yeah.
That it was one of my favorite backup things.
It sure was.
His humor is just spot on and it's just really cool for the book. Like it just ties things together.
I like it. I contacted him very last minute. I should have contacted him and Chris earlier. And there's other people who it's, you know, in retrospect it's like, oh crap, I should have had Chris G do a G-Man thing. What was I thinking? My wits weren't about me. There's just so many pieces of so many things going on all at the same time that.
Don Simpson.
Yeah, it's like I should. What was it? You know, I wasn't necessarily thinking about every piece of it. Oh well.
When
it's always 300.
There's always 300.
When I saw this, I was like, ooh. Oh, it's so awesome.
Jeez.
It is fun. I love Savage Dragonbert.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. I'm glad he said, okay, sure, I'll do it. And stepped up.
It's just great that he can kind of make fun of it in a loving way, but it's like, I love that, you know, fist fight in Rubble-Filled Street. It's so great.
I asked Carl to come on the show once, but his English isn't his first language, so he declined.
Which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like this guy's, he declined because he didn't think he could, I don't know, convey his thoughts well enough or in English, but yet, you read his strips and his
great.
comedy is masterful.
Yeah, they're perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's like,
So yeah, it was really cool. You got to convince him to come back and do some more.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, I can't. You think about it, like it's amazing to think he has a one shot of all these, that exist. Is people just love it. It's good stuff. But yeah. And then I got a real kick out of the Desperate Times, which is kind of funny because it's like he said it in real time, almost like Savage Dragon, Yeah. Like now we're seeing these guys all grown up,
Yeah, no, that was fun because and we had talked about that, like, hey, here's an idea, why don't you try this? And I was like, okay, cool. So I didn't know. I was somehow thinking that he was going to pop ahead even further, like there'd be no reason for them to be old men, but I'd be like, these guys are just doing the same old crap. But then he decided, because that's him, it's his own life there. So
right.
He's married and he's got twins. So.
And it's amazing too to see how far he's come with, not just a letterer, but just a cartoonist, and how much in demand his work's been from Marvel and doing his own stuff. And he grew up doing. I mean, a lot of these guys kind of found their voice doing Dragon. I can look back at the first comic bits with Chris G. Yeah.
And look at that and compare it to how he got towards the end of his doing stuff in the book, and go, yeah, this guy grew up, found his voice on this book, and that's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people just finding what they're doing, just seeing stuff in print is so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to go, oh, when this shrinks down, this happens to it. It's like you're just not aware of it at all, And I think there's a learning curve that goes on with a lot of stuff where you suddenly see it. I'm doing that now where we're doing the twice up stuff to suddenly realize, oh, that's so small that you can't see it at all. Maybe I don't need to work that tiny.
Right. Right.
That's that sort of thing. There's instances in some of the art for this where I'll get the lettering in and I'll go, oh, I didn't leave anywhere near enough room for that. I need to move this character to the left or this character to the right or do something to accommodate them. We were talking about that panel that takes place at Stronghold Penitentiary. In that there were I didn't leave enough room, so it's like I had to move this guy's big white head over quite a bit in order to make it so that those balloons weren't sitting on somebody else's face. It's like, oops, screwed that one up. And that it's nice to be able to control things a little bit. Like I always, part of the process to me is when I get the lettering in from Chris, I'll marry it to the art so it's not sitting on top of it and delivering it to Image as two separate files. They get it as a done, flattened file, ready to be printed. So a lot of when I get stuff from Chris, I'll be moving lettering around a little bit or putting hands or feet or fins in front of balloons. It's just things that I can do that can be kind of fun to screw around with.
Nice. Yeah.
I wondered how that worked with the 2-up.
Well, it's been that way since 186. Because the lettering's not on hasn't been on the boards now since then. And it's, initially I resisted the whole thing. I didn't want to ever do that. I wanted to have it be lettered on the boards. I liked that idea.
Right.
But now that I'm doing it this way, it is easier And I can see why, because at this point, I don't have to have a plot for a whole issue. I can just have a plot for a page. I've drawn a page. I can get that page colored while I'm thinking about the rest of the issue. Whereas before, I would have to pencil the entire issue and then script the entire issue and get it all lettered and like that.
How many issues did you get out this year? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, they've been pretty much on point. I mean, little.
It's been a little better, but I know that in 193 he was starting up in the new school, wasn't he? So he was a junior.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's got to be a year ago at least. So
Gotcha.
I mean, there's been 8 issues, so it's like,
Yeah.
lost a little ground. By the time he is completely done with high school, I think will probably be 17 or 18 issues
Right.
of him with the funky logo and being in high school and stuff like that.
So I think we're getting close to almost the 2-hour mark. I had
Okay.
a few questions. I know I have a few listeners that sent in some questions for you if you care to answer.
You bet.
We had Andrew Dientremont who asks, "Will Alex ever show up again?"
She just showed up.
Yeah, she did.
What?
Yeah.
She's all the time. No, she was in during when Dragon was in the trial in 185.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember that.
She was watching TV. Yes, she will eventually be back.
kidding.
Not necessarily in a big active role, but will at least touch on her and what she's up to.
Maybe she'll go visit Dragon in jail or something.
Not necessarily that, but I might do a story which is, the Malcolm goes someplace else, and that happens to be the same place where she's at,
Gotcha.
and stuff like that. I don't know that I want to have her necessarily hanging out with or being back in contact with Dragon again, because I think there's some pain there. There's some, stuff that went on.
Right.
I don't know that I can just be like, oh, now it's totally fine.
Well, and I think as a reader, I think we've kind of gone through that phase. Like you say, your Dragon's kind of on the back burner. I want to see some newer characters get the spotlight. You only have 20-something pages a month. And
No,
it
always seems like space is totally at a premium.
Right.
In the book, it's like, I can only touch on this so much. I need to get through all this, and every issue represents, a month.
Right.
What do I do here? I need to accomplish this, and this. Get the characters from here. It's like I'm doing an issue now where it's snowing outside, and there's a Christmas tree in somebody's apartment, and it's like, yeah, by the time this shows up, Christmas will be over. If I'm actually having there be some kind of a Christmas acknowledgement in the issue after that, that means we're pushing into February and still talking about Christmas. At some point, we gotta start catching up a little bit.
Right. Gotcha.
Which is why I don't mention their birthdays all the time, because it would just be nonstop.
Yeah.
It's like
Another birthday issue?
Their birthday? God,
They have those every year.
Because it's like everybody's going to have a birthday, and there's going to be a Christmas every year.
Right.
If we mention it every year, and it's like, oh, this book's nonstop birthdays and holidays.
Just like real life.
Just, except that all of us, we go, there's probably 358 days a year that we don't give a shit about, that isn't anything particularly special.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of go, okay, let's concentrate on some of those days rather than have it be nonstop this other stuff. All right, next question. Let's go through.
Josephat Gomez, he asks, is the new Twice Up format more time consuming? And he said,
Yes.
loved issue 199. There you go. Yes.
It is considerably more time consuming.
Matt Kind.
There's no two ways around it.
Yeah, that's what we figured.
It's
What would you say in terms of time, though? Like, are you talking about an extra half a day, or is there any number that you could put to that, or how much longer it takes to do it this way, or like a page?
Shoot. Yeah, I don't really know because I haven't
Just
really
depends on what you're drawing.
timed myself on both of them. I do know that when I was doing regular comics, and there would be times it'd be like, you really got to get this stuff done, and I could do 3 or 4 pages a day if pushed to it. It's like, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do that.
All right, next question. Matt Kind says, why were Super Patriot and Vanguard in so many Extreme books? Because they're cool characters.
Because I don't know. They wanted to use them, and I wasn't using them.
Hey, don't shoot the messenger.
I know that Gary Carlson was at one point writing stuff.
Right. Yep.
So he's going to use his guy. That made sense. I know that when there was that new brigade and they were using characters from everybody's book, that made a certain amount of sense to have it be Vanguard be part of that group rather than say have Savage Dragon be going over and hanging out with those guys.
Right. Yep, makes sense. John Turner asks, if you had the time, and assuming Marvel was on board, would you do an arc or something like Savage Hulk, like a classic Hulk set in the past?
What? You mean like a comic for Marvel?
I guess. He said if you had the time, and I'm assuming if Marvel was on board, I guess he's asking if you would do like a...
If I would do stuff at Marvel, no.
There you go.
At this point, I'm done with doing
You had mentioned in the past that you had made a pitch to do like a Hulk like way back in the day,
like
right?
25 years ago.
Yeah.
that was a while back.
And our pal Michelle Fife says, can you draw everyone from Charlton Tower, Valiant First, Ultraverse, Epic, 2000 AD, Jademan, and traditional comics? I guess he wants to see our version of everybody. But that's it. Sure. Well, that was our listener questions. I had a few quick ones myself, if you can spare a few more minutes.
I've got a dental appointment at 3, so we can't get into that. But.
We won't take up much more of your time. Are there any other experiments out there that you have in mind that you haven't tried in the book?
No, and that does lately what I've been doing, which is not necessarily a huge experiment. Like, oh, that's difficult. How in the world are you going to do it? What I've been doing is just picking a certain artist and going, okay, this issue I'm just doing Mike Mignola panel arrangements. It's just his panel configurations, the way he stacks those rectangles on a page. That's what I'm doing. Nice. And actually, I did that in issue 200. That's all Mignola.
All right.
That's all Mignola panel shapes, as is 201.
Scoop. You heard it here first.
But there's nothing to it. It's not like it's his compositions. It's not like his shading or anything. I don't know that anybody would really even notice at all. But I would just from a starting point, okay, how can I? Essentially, what I do a lot of times is just take things off the table, because when you can do anything you want, there's so many options. There's so many different variables that can go into that it becomes daunting. You just go, anything I want. Absolutely anything I want? Really? Like, yeah, anything you want, So to go, all right, well, I'm going to do an issue which is all entirely 6-panel grids with no variations on that at all, suddenly that's like, oh, okay, good. That takes so many things off the table that I can just concentrate on filling those panels in an interesting way. And same thing with doing this. It's like, every page you got to find a Mike Mignola panel or page that has panels stacked in an interesting way.
Right.
So it's, if one got out all the Hellboy issues and we're like looking for it, they could probably find every page in here. Like, oh yeah, this one has 3 tiny panels on the top and then a long panel and whatever. And it's, whatever. By the time I'm done putting in my fat ass panel borders between things and screwing around it, but it's not really the same, but it's still a starting point.
Right.
And I'll likely do that with other people and just find different ways of doing it.
It seems like it's almost like a game for you to just kind of keep yourself interested or challenged to do kind of these things. Just it's just a matter of paring it down, because like I say, you can do anything is so broad that it's tough. Like when we were doing Pop Gun, and it was, we just want you to do comics, do whatever the hell you want. That's more difficult than doing the next issue project where somebody just hands you something and just goes, okay, do the next one of these. This is something that's done. These characters exist. What's the next adventure of this guy who's got a big T on his shirt? What's he all about? Or just taking that and going, oh, okay, I'm going to write a story about that. The guy that eats Tootsie Rolls.
I was actually really tempted to do a story with Captain Tootsie just to rip off a Herb Trimpe cover. Because Doc Samson has his costume is based on Captain Tootsie's costume. I didn't even know that. But when you see it, them next to each other, it's like, oh yeah, it's the same costume, except instead of a T on his shirt, he's got a lightning bolt. But the first Doc Samson cover, I was like, I should totally just rip this off. It'd be awesome. But I'm not super big on homage covers either, so.
I totally support that.
You could do it for opening splash pages or something like that.
You should totally rip off Cat. Do that. That'd be awesome.
So, just last question for you. I don't know if my fellow Fincasters have any questions, but I'm interested to know if we're going to see any other projects in 2015 other than Dragon. Like, do you have anything else in the pipeline? I know, we always ask you about Ant and the status on that, but what do you got going on that you can talk about?
It's like I do want to finally get Ant in print. That's something I want to do. I do know that I want to do more with Jack Champion, who is in
Giant Size Kung Fu Bible Stories.
Kung Fu Bible Stories. It's like I want to do a million things. Whether or not I'm going to be able to find the time to do it and do Dragon is a question,
Yeah.
It's like at this point I've written a couple of screenplays that need to be revised. I need to do some revisions on those.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find time to do that.
The romance thing?
That and I did a Savage Dragon one I knew when I wrote it was like I'm using way too much stuff directly from the comic that honestly doesn't translate that well when you're starting to have it be actual stuff. You go, oh, okay. Characters say an awful lot jumping in the air in a comic. They can't really do that.
You got to do it at least once. Have a conversation in midair, mid-punch.
Yeah, it's you can't do that. You really can't. It's like a lot of stuff you think, oh, this works well in this medium, and when you translate it into something else, it's like, man, that doesn't work anymore. I want it to. It would be awesome if it did work, but it doesn't.
Anime does it all the time.
Well, it's not anime.
I know.
No, people get really hung up on like superhero costumes and go, oh, how come they just don't use the ones from the comics? You go, because the ones from the comics aren't anything, and you really don't, until you're working in that and actually having to deal with it, you don't really think that much about the fact that there aren't such thing in real life as unstable molecules. And that suddenly you're going, well, no, this costume actually has to be made of a functional real material. You can't just have it be a made up material. It's got to be something. If Captain America's costume is transitioning magically from chainmail to being cloth at his head, how do we make that?
Yeah.
We've got to, what is it when the Fantastic Four are wearing those costumes? Is that spandex? Is that tights? Or are they wearing some kind of coverall?
Well, and that's why you would think that Dragon would translate pretty well into a superhero movie because he wears a police uniform, and you can have villains like the Morlock type villains.
The problem you're going to come with Dragon is the minute he has to get into a police car and you go, oh shit, he's got a thing on his head that takes up space. There's not that much headroom. There's not enough headroom in a police car, because he's 5'10", plus all of that height is being added from the waist up.
Turned into a gag. He punches his fist through the ceiling.
Let's roll.
Just uses that weird cop car from the cartoon with no roof.
Yeah. It's like, here we go.
And for the listeners, Raven brought up the romantic comedy screenplay, and I know you don't want to talk too much about that because you don't want to let any of the cat out of the bag on what you're trying to do with that. But you did mention that you wrote a romantic comedy screenplay.
It's done. It needs some slight revisions, not as much as the Dragon one does, actually.
Less talking while jumping, I assume.
Yeah, less talking while jumping. There is comic book stuff in it though, but it's not.
Nice.
It's not.
It's not Chasing Amy.
It's more Chasing Amy than Batman.
Yeah.
So it doesn't exist in a comic book world, but it exists in a world in which there are comic books. So.
Gotcha.
A world where people read comic books.
Yeah,
what a world that would be.
What a world. It's so different than the one I'm aware of.
And speak casually about them.
Yeah. It's like, comics, aren't they awesome? So good.
I'm so in love with you and comics.
I don't know. It's you or Batman Truth 67. I'm not sure. I'll be spending the night with one of them, but so tempting. It'll either be something at some point or it won't. It's another one of those things that all this stuff takes time.
Yeah.
And you start going into it. It's like, okay, well, if it takes you a week to do this and it takes you a month to do that, the unfortunate thing about drawing comics is it takes a lot of time.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, well, if you're doing Ant, are you going to do that twice up too? Or do you just go, fuck it, I'm going to find some different style that works on this book that is different from what I'm doing on Savage Dragon. Just have it be its own thing, which I'm kind of thinking I'm doing on that. I am kind of interested in the idea of doing flat color on everything but Ant herself. So like everything else is completely flat, well-chosen color. And she is just, the color just is
pops.
Just torqued. Everything about it is just like, you just go really overboard. And it just makes it stand out a little bit more.
That'll be interesting to see. It's kind of hard to envision in my mind.
It's kind of like how Dragon is colored, except that, because we're doing that a little bit now. We're doing this,
everything in the foreground.
It's like, okay, this is going to be flat, this part. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Hmm.
If we get there, I need to get there.
Coming 2008.
Well, it's, there's always stuff that comes up.
Well,
and
it only took 8 years for Jack Champion to show up. So
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding.
I know. I don't want it to be that where everything takes forever.
And it killed me too, because I was just like, oh damn, this is so rife with like other stories. Like, I want to know more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, you read it and it's like, oh, this could be more than it is. And that's another thing that I think that one is easily could be turned into a screenplay kind of thing. Because it's got kids, it's got, blah, blah, blah. It's got all these elements that work. Going into other dimensions, all this fun stuff.
So yeah, I mean, we're coming to over the 2 hour mark.
Yeah,
and
giant size.
we hit it all.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
guess.
Let's split this up into 6 episodes.
Well, it's such an awesome comic. It took like an hour to get through, and I'm still rereading it and finding new cool things about it. And just like by prepping for this interview, rereading it and just catching a lot of things I didn't catch on the first or second time. It's a great book. Kudos to you. It really
Thanks,
came
Joey.
out together really, really well.
Yeah, I'm happy with all of it, really. Some of it was really like, oh my God, is this going to get in on time?
Yeah.
It's really by the seat of my pants, just like, oh crap. But happily, it all came together, so. Yay.
Also, we had another anniversary. Our FINcast is 3 years old this month as well, which is amazing because I just don't know where the 3 years went. But we've had a lot of fun kind of talking Savage Dragon, being kind of Savage Dragon nerds, and just having the opportunity to talk to each other and talk to the pros, and getting you on every once in a while, Eric, has just been really cool and really fun to really kind of just be able to talk to you and learn your process and tap into your head and see.
I mean, really, if you wanted to have me on more frequently, I'm totally fine with that.
Cool.
I
Appreciate it.
It's a good time.
One of my buddies said when I first joined up, he was like, so it's about one book? I was like,
we got that a lot.
It's about one book.
But it's monthly. It's not like we're doing it, a lot of these podcasts are weekly and stuff like that. I just do it. It's just because it's
weekly on this. That would be something.
Yeah.
That other issue, man.
Well, to be fair, we've gotten away from like doing retro reviews and stuff like that. There's always room for. There's so much. You get over 20 years of content.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We could fill in probably a weekly podcast for a little while at least, but.
Well, we started off going gung-ho, like we're going to do this every 2 weeks, and it's just, now I have 2 kids, and, people are working, and it's hard sometimes just to meet up. Like, I work from home on some days that we do the podcast and take 2 hours to do the podcast and make up the time or something because we have weird work schedules and, East Coast, West Coast things going on, but, it's always a treat to sit down and talk about it and get some of the pros in. Over the past 3 years, we've had a lot of fun. I mean, the episode with Josh Acorn, however you pronounce his last name, that was really fun. Talking to Frank Fosco for the first time and just hearing his accent and stuff like that. Was neat. Getting Gary Carlson on the line, Joe Keating.
The emergence of Virgil.
Yeah.
The appearance of Virgil in the book.
Oh yeah.
Simon was like, "Oh my God!" It's like, look. He's like, "Look at this panel." I was like, "He's like, it's Virgil, bro." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That is freaking amazing."
That was fun.
Yeah.
I like to be able to do that. Have him show up.
So
all right,
anyway, but yeah, thanks for joining us, Eric. And
Real quick, I don't want you to leave before I say this because, man, this blows my mind. All right, Eric, real quick. Me and Mr. Calculator and Mr. Wikipedia page had a little date before the show. It looks like in the last 20 years and 6 months, you cranked out 4,451 pages.
Huh.
Those are the pages that he wrote.
Those are the pages that only like wrote and drew. There were more, I'm sure, but those are just pages that were
Because the
published.
page count does fluctuate somewhat in the regular book. Do you actually go through and be like, all right, this one's 22, and this one's 20, and this one's 17?
Well, it's all listed on the wiki, so you can.
And Gavin even has it broke up like 10 pages here, 8 pages here, 4 pages here. That was hell. So,
So what was that number again? And that's probably all like the main story.
That's main stories, and every now and then there would be one that Eric wrote and drew, and it just had a different inker. That still counts too.
Okay.
So how many
So like
pages?
issue 100, that's got a lot of that.
Oh yeah, so 4,451 pages, hit in 20 years, 6 months. Little context: Dave Sim hit 6,000 pages in 27 years. So at the rate you're going, averaging about 18 pages a month, you're gonna hit him in 7 years. The page count anyway.
Ah, man. Chomping on his heels. This is gonna happen. Shit just got real. Yeah, no, I want it. I want to do it. I want to get to that magic 300 and pass it.
Nice.
It's awesome.
It's gonna take a while. I mean, hopefully the next 100 will go a little quicker than the previous 100. I don't plan on becoming an Image Comics publisher in the midst of all that. That was my biggest dry spell.
I think they're doing okay now.
Yeah, they're doing just fine, and that's awesome. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So cool. Well, unless you guys had any other questions, I think we'll let the guy go eat his lunch or something. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
I'm starving.
But thanks, Eric.
All right,
Great
guys.
to have you.
It's good to
See
be
you
here.
around.
Thanks for chatting us up.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Whoa, what an awesome interview. Holy
I'm
cow.
sweating, pouring down my face.
I always love having Eric on. It's the real deal. It's
Makes
good
it all
times.
worthwhile.
And it's a historical accomplishment. The road to 300 is just
Yeah, definitely.
totally
Yeah.
awesome.
And this-
So should we talk about the next episode? That's too much awesome. I'm like blown away. I'm like speechless.
Yeah, what could
Let's just
what could
get
the
right
next
to it.
issue possibly bring us?
What
Take
could
us
possibly
further
follow?
onto this high.
In Savage Dragon 201, following the cataclysmic events of our awe-inspiring 200th issue, Malcolm Dragon comes face to face with the new head of the Vicious Circle. It's a battle like none you've seen before.
I just got to say that's a really vague description in context with issue 200's events.
Yeah, gotta keep them
Yeah.
guessing.
Make it up as you
Gotta
go
keep
along, more like.
Gotta keep them coming back.
Do you remember what the cover
Pretty
of
sure
that
it's
issue
Dart.
is?
Yellow skies and dart thighs.
Gotcha.
Kicks
It'll be
to the
interesting
head.
to learn how she got out of the prison there.
I'm gonna guess feminine wiles.
What?
Alluring looks. Little elbow shake.
Yeah, look like those correctional officers are really feeling it.
They told her to stare all they want.
You're right, they did.
That's how I read it. Stare all you want, bitch. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's probably not at all what happened.
I like that
All
theory
right.
that the three cops were in on it.
Yeah, we'll see. It's got something's got to give, right?
Dart just throws the dart
She
down
just
at.
kicks the
That'll be-
wall down and goes, "Look, I was super strong all along."
She's got a dart hidden under her tongue, and she's gonna flick it out and blow up the door.
Bro, just realized the god dart.
The return of the God Boomerang.
That's it. Just comes sailing back on the panel and she catches it. It's gonna be great. Either way, 201. We're stomping all down your back, Cerebus. We're coming for you.
Nice.
Better watch out.
Yeah, so I think that
That
wraps it
wraps
up.
it up.
Happy anniversary, guys! 3 years going strong. Can you believe it?
That wraps it up like a Mr. Monster condom on a State Fair zucchini.
Nice. I think we got to end on that note.
Thanks for listening,
Thanks for
everybody.
listening.
All right. See ya.
The Savage FINcast is a member of the Gutter Trash Podcast Network, which can be found at guttertrash.net. The Savage FINcast is part of the Comics Podcast Network, which can be found at comicspodcast.com. Also, find us on YouTube at youtube.com/user/SavageFincast.